Please note that whatever we say is not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure. If you are in doubt, do consult a healthcare practitioner before applying any change to your lifestyle.
Checked.
Hello, good morning. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are things, Angela?
Mashallah, we're very good. Mashallah. How are you?
Glad to hear.
Haven't seen you in a few weeks, so
Really, was it that long?
it's been that long. Yeah.
It feels long when we don't see each other. So, today, Angela, what are we going to talk about? It's your
Well,
pet
we finally decided
subject.
to talk about my pet subject,
Yes.
sugar. And what's wrong with sugar?
No.
What's wrong
There's
with
nothing
sugar?
wrong with sugar.
Oh,
Please.
I wish it was true, because I love sugar.
So what's your story with sugar then? Like, is it like everybody else? It's one of those things that was just handy over the counter in the kitchen and used everywhere all the time.
We always used to think there's nothing wrong with sugar. I remember even reading articles, oh, it doesn't cause any problems. But now in this day and age, 2022,
Yeah.
we know a lot more. Thank Alhamdulillah for that, because it's been damaging our health. And I'm gonna say it's because of the amount of sugar we eat knowingly and unknowingly, because a lot of it is unknowingly in products.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I was, I think probably until I was about something like 25, I would have sugar in my tea, my coffee. I would have yogurt pot with a good layer of sugar on top, and I would eat the sugar. You know, it would melt, and then I would eat the sugar on my spoon and a bit of yogurt, and then when I've finished eating that top layer, I would then add more sugar and continue the bottom.
When I was a kid, they had this. When I was growing up in Greece with my grandma, she would put on fresh bread a layer of butter or ghee, and then sprinkle sugar on that. And it's one of those favorite childhood foods.
Yeah, I even have a memory, I think, of my mother giving me, probably when I was like 2 or something, in those little tubs, drinking cups with a lid, and it would be sugared water.
Oh, don't get me started on that. I'll tell you about that. But another childhood food that I was given that used to make me gag was raw egg with cocoa powder, probably sweetened, and then added sugar. Mix it, and they would give it to the kids because they said that egg is good for you. Now I know eggs are good for you,
but not with the sugar.
But now I'm thinking, and it was I couldn't stomach it. I had a gag reflex. But as for the sugar and the water, when I first had my first child, I was 19. I didn't know, I had no support for breastfeeding and or anything, and that was one of the things I was told by my sister-in-law at the time. You must give the baby a bottle of water with glucose in it.
Yeah.
And I can't believe I did that. I mean, I didn't know anything better. So it's very used and widespread in every community. But now we know it does so many things that are unsavory to you that we really need to cut down. And we think it's a fun food. We think of it as a fun food, and we give it to kids, and we feel bad for them if we don't give them candy. And we, now the Muslim community, mashallah, they also have halal candy. So before it was almost easier to say, oh, that's not halal, we can't have jelly candies. But now they're halal.
Yeah.
And now all the bad health problems are coming into our communities too, and our children. And you start them on sugar.
I think I think nowadays we can really talk about a sugar addiction, can't we?
Yeah.
Because I think probably those of you listening to us, if you think about it, when you start having something sweet, you just want more, don't you? It's kind of not enough. It's just not enough. Yeah. It does, and I absolutely love sweets. I
don't think there's anyone who does not really like them.
Yeah. But some people I've heard, they're like, oh, I'm just okay to have like maybe I'll have like one or two pieces of chocolate, and that's okay, and they can move on. For me, it's like you open the flood. It's. Oh, I know if I have one little piece of chocolate or one. Sometimes children buy themselves sweets, and and they have and they're there, and especially when they're a little bit fizzy and a little bit acidic.
I like the jelly
I
ones.
Stop.
I like the jelly ones because I didn't have them when I first became Muslim. All of them were haram. Before that, my parents didn't allow candy because it was a waste of money. So
where is that? Why do we have such a sweet tooth naturally? I mean, why could it be? Why couldn't it be just? Is it because when we were young, like babies, the first thing we need is a bit of that sort of sweet milk. Breast milk is very sweet.
I mean, we have an age to like sweet, right? Because we have the fruits and the milk, and all of them have a slight taste.
It's just been replaced by something that's just not as...
What's happened in our time since the 70s on is that the companies, the food companies have decided to make the foods really addictive. I don't know if they use that word in their meetings, but they hire chemical people who know the chemistry of food, and they make their food sweet, but you can't taste the sweetness. For example, if you look at a box of cereal, there's sugar, but there's also salt. So what they do is they play around with the ratio, and then you're on your tongue, you might not be registering sweet because Kellogg's without milk, and then you add more sugar, it doesn't taste very sweet, but it's because there's added salt in there and other things. So you don't register in your tongue, but your body does register it. So you're eating that sugar even if you don't taste it. Or it's in different foods.
Well, if there was something else I noticed that, I think we mentioned already in the past how you can train your taste buds. And
it is
when I started being much more aware of these things and reduced my sugar intake. So now I can update you. Yes, for many, many years I have not been doing this thing about sugar loaded yogurt and stuff, but when I started eating more fats, lower carbs, a bit less fruit, less of those very sweet fruits that open my appetite, then the next time I did that actually after having the children. I would always go into a period where I would really try and lose weight to not pile on the weights for the next one that we were hoping to have after, etc. And I remember I was like, oh, I'm going to treat myself to one of those very nice Jaffa cakes or something, and I nearly gagged. I was like, oh my god, that's awfully sweet. Really. And again, it happened today. My daughter baked a beautiful carrot cake, really amazing. I thought, I'll treat myself to that. I've not had a really nice homemade cake for a long time, and I had that this morning with my cup of tea, and it was lovely. The taste was so nice, but I just thought it was just like sickly sweet.
Well, now you're used to less sugar.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's doable. In my early 20s, I used to have tea with 5 teaspoons of sugar. I love this story because I always say it. And I remember my friend trying to introduce me to herbal teas with no sugar, but they were fruity. And I remember one time I actually did cry. I'm going to leave this tea for... Is this what my life is about? Tasteless food?
Yeah.
And I was overreacting, obviously. But now I've reduced it slowly over the years without even realizing, and I have no sugar in my tea, no sugar in my coffee. I can even drink coffee without milk.
Yeah.
But I do have that problem with if it's a dessert, especially homemade dessert, and I love baking, but I've forbidden myself to bake for a long time now because if I make that cake, I will eat it.
Yeah. Also, I mean, we'll discuss different ways of using other types of sweeteners, like healthy sweeteners. Yeah. You can still have, that sweet taste. It doesn't have to be regular.
So, it's not all gloom and doom. We can still have
exactly.
Sweet, but we're just saying how it's in our culture and how we have fond memories of sweet things.
Yeah. Yeah, they're associated a lot, and yeah, also they're often given as a treat when a child is upset. Oh, come on, just have a cup of tea, have a little sweet.
I still feel bad about it. Like it's not good to give the baby, like the little child, some sweets, but.
Because you connect basically the emotional upset with the trying to make them feel better with sweet, and it's always from a good intention. But unfortunately, it has a bit some bad effects. So can you explain to us a little bit more now in terms of physiology? You know, why sugar is bad. Okay, we've touched about the level, sort of the addiction that it can create. So that would be how it impacts in your brain, how your brain reacts to it, and the association it makes. But physically inside your body, what really happens when we're talking about, what are we talking about? White refined sugar here, or all sorts of sugar?
Well, in the end, all carbs. At the end, when they're digested, your body recognizes it as glucose and it breaks down to glucose.
So example of carbs would be?
So it would be the rice, the pasta, the bread, the fruit. But we're not going to say we can't have those things. But what it is if you have your fruit instead of your juice, if you have whole with lots of fiber instead of white. But just to point out that the stuff at the shops, the brown bread is mostly color, and it's not real whole wheat bread. The best way to do that, to have whole, is to try and make your own. And if you don't want to make bread, then you can make naans and flatbreads and all that. Yes, I'm asking people to go back into the kitchen, because that's the only way we can get our health back, is to know what's in our food. And there's all kinds of nasties in the thing. And so with the sugar, something, I don't know if it's still controversial, but it was said once on a show that eating sugar hits the same spots that cocaine does. Okay, so it's very addictive, and it causes a lot of health problems. One, as women, we always worry about our weight. So yes, I know some people don't want to keep hearing about this, but weight gain is serious, right? Sugar makes you fat. And why does it make you fat? Because when you eat sugar, it digests, it's in your blood system. Your body has to release insulin to come and mop it up. Insulin is a fat storage hormone, and it's a very important hormone to have. It comes in and wipes your blood from all the sugar. It has to put it somewhere. It stores it in your cells. So if you keep doing that, and your body has to keep pumping out insulin, over the years, your pancreas that releases the insulin is going to get tired. That's why we end up having diabetes. Okay, it leads to diabetes, sugar. So then what happens is we go to the doctor, we go on meds, and unfortunately they give people instead of telling people to mind their diet, like seriously, that's the most important thing, they give them medication, and that medication is more insulin, so you keep following your bad habits.
So they give you more insulin so that you can eat more sweet stuff?
I do see that they do tell them to reduce and the portions and stuff, but there's a better way. There is a better way.
Recently, I've been really amazed as the new campaigns from the government have been now much more clearly linking sugar with health problems, and now there's a sugar tax, isn't there? It's been happening for the last year. So people are much more aware, but it's very recent. And when we're talking, what are we now, 2022? It was maybe in 2018 or something that it came up. So really late in the day.
Let's not forget that the government acts very slowly because they have an interest in the food.
They have to keep everyone happy, don't they?
And the businesses make money from it, and the government and the businesses are interlinked interchangeably. So the best way is for people to find more about it, find out more, and take their health into their own hands. Don't wait for the government to change their mind. Don't wait for them to tell you, oh, now this and that. Look, do some research. It's your health at the end of the day. If you get diabetes, the government is not going to suffer. You are going to suffer. And it's a terrible progressive disease if you don't put it in its track. So that's the worst thing that could happen with increasing sugar.
What other things then?
Apart from getting overweight and having a hard time losing weight, it affects your hormones and all that. It also affects, believe it or not, your acne. Like when you see young people, they become teenagers, and all of a sudden they start to break out. When I tell my kids, even they don't really want to believe it, it's what you ate. You ate a lot of sugar this week. That's why you have a breakout.
Yeah.
It affects your hormones. There's a mechanism that we'll talk about it at a different time, because it really is so important. But it's the sugar. It also, what sugar does, it's not just plain sugar, it's what it does to your body. It affects your hormones. It let me see, it affects your so when you're getting acne, it affects your hormone, but it does something else. It affects your immunity, right? It kills your your white blood cells. So you're more likely to get ill when you eat sugar a lot, and people overdo it. When you go through in your period, you go through hormonal, and you feel like that's what you should be having, sugar, but it's not really sugar you're craving, it's other things. But in our mind, it's sugar.
It's so handy. It's just there, isn't it?
You know what the other thing it does is with magnesium, and magnesium is so important. And we know when you're craving chocolate, you should be having the magnesium you want, not the sugar. So it affects your magnesium, and when you don't have enough magnesium, a whole bunch of other reactions in your body don't happen. So it's just sugar. It does a lot of bad reactions, right? So long term you have diabetes, but short term you have acne. You can get ill. You could get a bit depressed, because it gives you have the sugar, you get a high, and then the insulin comes in, mops it up, and then next thing you know, you're hungry for more, and you're feeling that up and down feeling, and it is a bit depressing. And if you do it long term,
and physically, I guess you feel like that energy's been drained, because you get hypoglycemia, don't you?
And that's when you're more likely to get angry in Ramadan, right? People fast. Well, they're sugar burners, most of us are, and all of a sudden you've cut out so much, and you're more likely to get upset.
So it would make sense, for instance, to before Ramadan, to kind of go through a gradual reduction of your sugar intake, so your body's a bit more ready for.
Otherwise, you're setting yourself up to be difficulty in fasting. And why do that? And people take it for granted. They think, well, but that's how it is. No, it's not how it is. We can't change it, and that's why it's good to prepare. It's not just fasting. No, it's what you eat before you fast. So when you're fasting, how you are in fast is determined by what you were eating the day before. So what you're eating at your iftar is going to affect how your day to day is going to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's interesting, because preparing for the show, I did more reading than normal about the subject, and there's quite a lot of people now who they try out the sugar. It's like a patch or something to assess your level of glucose in your blood.
Tell me about that.
And it's quite. I found it quite interesting, because they're not people with diabetes, but they just were curious. Okay, how does food affect my blood the day after, or 2 days after, or a few hours after? And they were shocked how, if you have a lot of carbs, a lot of sugar, a lot of sweet stuff, how it affects you for a day, for 2 days afterwards still, until your blood levels are still again but more balanced. And so there are ways, if you're curious to know, to see the sort of instant feedback of what you put inside your body.
It is. I mean, you don't believe. Now that we have those measuring tools, it really does help.
Easy ones.
And when people are going on a low carb diet, they do use some of those tools. You don't really need them, but some people just want to experiment and have more.
Well, yeah, especially athletes or people who are.
It's their profession to know what's going on.
To know exactly, very precisely. But sometimes some people just do it out of curiosity, because they just want to understand exactly how it works. And it's an eye-opening at the very least.
And a little bit about for how it affects children. I mean, think about this. You're setting them up for bad health and habits. You give them juice in a bottle, then you give them a treats, right? The other thing that impacts is their teeth. I mean, it ruins their dental health. Sugar. You can't really brush, have candy and then brush your teeth. A lot of candy sticks to your teeth, the baby teeth. If the baby teeth rot, then it affects the next generation of teeth. So all around, we're giving it to kids because, it's fun. Sugar is not fun. We've been convinced it's fun because of all the advertising.
Plus, as you said, the effect it has, like nearly like a drug, with the satisfaction it gives you at the time of eating it.
And it's not good for the kids. For example, kids who go to school, if they left in the morning, of all things, they had cereal, Kellogg's, and Kellogg's gives free Kellogg's to children in breakfast clubs. You're setting up those kids to be sleepy, tired for the rest of the day, not be able to pay attention. They need to have something more substantial, like an egg, cheese, some fruit. That's what they need in the morning, not cereal, the one that's in these fancy, funny packages.
So I'll give you my mother's experience on that. She was a French teacher in France, and most of her career was in the 80s, 90s, early 2000, and then she retired. And I remember her telling me that when she started a career, everything was fine. Everything was not children were just kind of concentrating fairly evenly in the day, and in France, you have a big lunch break, and then you only resume at 2 p.m. So you've kind of digested the food that you had about 12:30, and generally home cooked food on those times. And then in the 80s, late 80s, 90s, the cereals obviously became really big, breakfast cereals, but also the chocolate bars. We never used to have chocolate bars before that really much for the break in the middle of the morning. And she said she saw the difference year after. It was getting worse and worse and worse. At 11 o'clock, children were... So in France, we start early, 8 o'clock, the first lesson. First hour. So by 10 there was like a break. They would have more of those sugar bars or chocolate bars, and then by 11 it was just impossible to teach because they were just hypoglycemic. They couldn't concentrate. They were tired. They were hungry.
It's real.
And I remember she told me that quite some time, but about 20 years ago, she was telling me that how she noticed that difference over 20 years.
And then kids will come home from school after. A lot of parents will come home after school. They are cranky. They're not behaving right, and it's what you eat affects you. We can't get away from that, no matter what anyone says. It's not about discipline. It's not about anything more than what you put in your body will affect your mood. It will affect your behavior in children because they can't. Think about Ramadan. Grown-ups argue in Ramadan when you're supposed to not, right? It's because of what they're eating and how they're feeling. What do you expect from children to behave better than grown-ups? You're not giving them what they need. You're giving them what they want or what's fun. Well, food is fuel. It's not meant to be fun. You eat, it's fuel. If you want to make it fun in shapes, okay, Japanese do a little bit of that, but it's fuel, and you have to think how it affects you, not how fun it is. We have this thing at home because we saw it on TV. Well, if anything has a commercial, you should try not to buy it. Any commercial.
So on this note, we're going to have a short break to listen to a beautiful song, inshallah, and then after that you will tell us more about sort of practical tips on how to help us to just slightly,
and you're going to be talking a bit about the athletic side of things.
Yes, indeed, inshallah.
And we're back.
So, Angela, you promised us some really good tips for everyday life. What sort of things can we do to reduce our sugar intake without falling on the ground and having a tantrum and crying because it feels like the end of the world?
Well, the long term is to completely cut it out, but we have habits that we
Gotta
have to
be, yeah,
consider our
practical.
habits. Our habits stop us from changing, and you have to make a big effort. So
First of all, that means you have to decide you want to reduce your sugar intake.
yeah,
That you have to make a conscious
Effort.
intention and
Yeah.
that you're going to do that.
Now, alhamdulillah, we live in a time and place where there is alternatives. So what I've used for when I'm trying to change my baking, right, and it's a different another story, but I found in the UK the easiest thing to use to sweeten your cakes is I can't remember the name of it now. Erythritol. Oh, how can I forget erythritol? My husband uses it for his coffee when he wants to sweeten, but I don't use it. I have it because I want, if I make a cake or low carb dessert, I can use it.
So what is erythritol? Because I use xylitol, so it's like a toll.
It's like a sugar alcohol that does not affect your blood sugar like sugar does.
And it's not alcohol as in alcohol.
Yeah, it's not
obviously.
on alcohol. It's just the chemical
That's the
name of
the
it.
name, yeah.
Okay, so you can use that. Okay, if you don't want to do that, because some things have aftertaste, you'll have to try it to see how it tastes. But to me, it doesn't have an
So
aftertaste.
stevia is
It's
another
just a
popular
sweet.
one now, and
Yeah.
that one has a bit of a metallic aftertaste, I find. I use xylitol, which comes from the birch tree. It's very popular in Scandinavia, and actually this one, I don't know about erythritol, it might be similar, but I know about xylitol. It's used in some sweets that have been given to Finnish children in Finland, after every day after their lunch in the canteen, in the school canteen, and they have reduced the incidence of cavity in children by 75%.
Xylitol helps cavities
Because
reduction.
what it does is that it balances the pH in the mouth, therefore there's no place for the bacteria to...
So that's what you can give your kids,
Yeah.
xylitol flavored things. Though if you have too much, you will be running to the bathroom.
Yeah, like maltitol. Everything that finishes with a tol has that
So
effect.
remember that when you're giving your kids candy. So that's what you do. You replace it. The next thing you do not drink your calories, as in, if you're gonna, do not have orange juice. It will affect your blood sugar, at least not on an empty stomach. If you must, have it with something substantial, but it will increase your appetite because it's loaded. It's loaded.
Because it's just fructose. That's another sugar.
Whereas you want to eat orange juice, have oranges instead. You only need one orange or two to feel satisfied. But if you wanted the juice, it's so many glasses. I can't remember how many one glass how many oranges are. So you do that. You can have soda water, and you can use zero-calorie drinks as a band-aid, as a stop over to training yourself to having less sugar.
But not in the long term.
But not in the long term, obviously.
Because what it does, this is what I found that was quite shocking, is that the zero-calorie ones, so they generally use aspartame, it tricks, and acesulfame, it tricks the brain to think calories going to come, but no calories are coming because it's got that sweet taste. So the body gets primed for like, okay, I'm going to get some carbs, so and so it basically is counterproductive.
When I notice I want fizzy drink, I feel that after I have a meal like a chicken or curry or burger that I make myself, but in my head it's still paired with a fizzy drink. And even though the fizzy drink now is Pepsi Max, and I'm not advertising them, people, okay, not advertising any sugar-free drink, there's so many brands now, it still comes into my mind. So we have a psychology that affects us
associations
too. The other thing, when you're buying stuff at the supermarket, yogurt, you do not need to buy the sugar yogurt. You buy plain yogurt, and then you can get your own jams that are really low in sugar. Like there's one called Bon Maman from France.
Or there's another French brand which you find, which is a tall jar. It's called Saint Dalfour, and that one has no sugar at all. It's a preserve, and it's sweetened with grape juice.
There you go. So you get a whole bunch of those. You want to make a snack with yogurt. You have the plain yogurt, which is really good for you. You add a teaspoon or whatever in a little bowl. You give it to your kids. You add nuts. You read the packages, for goodness sakes. What else? You try to switch slowly to darker chocolate, not the regular stuff. Or what you could do to make the dark chocolate more palatable, you melt it, you add a bit of double cream, you add some nuts, you pour it in a pan, let it cool. Bob's your uncle, you have your own little chocolate. Yes, extra steps, but if you do it once in a while, then like you prepare ahead, and you can have it, like not do it when you want it, but prepare, for example, one day a week something that you know you're gonna want, and then you keep it in the fridge and you have it throughout the week. You can make your own granola. There's a lot of low sugar ones, but if we need to start looking at the amount of sugar on the packages. For example, if you're looking for a granola, see if you can have one that's 4 grams per sugar per serving. You can have oats. You can prepare them the night before. So you can have them in the morning, you boil them in the morning. So if you want to cut down on work in the morning, then all of this can be prepared ahead of time. You can eat peanut butter with bananas. You can make a nice peanut butter sandwich without the sugar. Peanut butter without sugar, that's rarely available now. When my kids were young, they didn't have such a thing, but now you can buy with no sugar. There's a lot of stuff you can do. You basically have to change your spending habits. So what do you do to reduce sugar in your house?
Yes, I do a lot of these sort of little tweaks. Some of them that you've mentioned. I go through phases actually.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm really, I manage to not really be interested. I think the phases are also in tune with my hormones.
Of course.
So as you said earlier about, craving certain things at certain times a bit more, etc. But I have managed now to virtually never use refined sugar anywhere that I do. So if I have coffee and I have I need my black coffee, my espresso, I like to have a bit of a sweetened taste. So I
like
just
to
add
bake,
a bit of,
and I still don't know how to switch my recipes because sugar, erythritol, behaves differently from sugar.
Yeah.
So there's also some traditional baking that I've been making over
not
the years,
the same.
and you don't want to waste all that ingredients.
Yeah. So
on a
like
test.
you, I'm not baking as much as I used to, but now my children are doing it instead.
Yeah, mashallah.
But then I would try and look. So for baking, the trick I find is that works well is to look for recipes online that already have worked out. They've spent time to work out the ratios.
There's a lot of people out there who's done that work, bless them.
And you just type whatever. I don't say you wanted to do like ginger cookies, and you type sugar-free ginger cookies, or whatever. And
low
then
carb.
Yeah, somewhat exactly, or low carb. These are keywords that generally take you to places where they've used different sweeteners, or there's some traditional cooking as well. In Turkey, I've got a recipe book from Turkey and other places where instead of using sugar, they traditionally would use honey, so which is already
in Turkey. They also have something molasses, but made from different carrots, pomegranates, all sorts of molasses.
And pomegranate obviously has got so many other health benefits.
They have a date syrup. Now, mind you, it's a syrup from dates, but we're trying to improve. You can't go from 1 to 20 in one go. You have to do it gradually. So, what you do today will change. By next year, you'll see you're in progress. So, I'll tell you a few other things. The other thing we can do is to limit, like don't bring junk food into the house. Don't buy chocolates. So I'm not saying don't eat them, but don't have them as a thing. So when you're tempted, you don't use them, right? What you do is once in a while you go and get a treat and you finish it all, and then that's it. you don't want to have them in the cupboard in the house. So in the middle of the night, it calls you, come and eat me, come and eat me. Does that happen to you, Safiya? When you have some really nice dessert saved, and it calls you in the middle of the night, you're ignoring it, but it wakes you up until you actually eat it.
Yeah, I mean, one of the tricks, obviously, you can't control every
it's
single
hormones
thing.
Calling you.
You can't control everything that's around you, especially when you have a big family.
No.
But I know that if
But you are in control of shopping.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Don't
somehow.
take kids. If you can avoid taking kids, do not take the kids. The supermarkets have hired experts on how to make your child make you buy something.
Yeah, so exactly. So I know if I have a chocolate bar in the cupboard, it doesn't last because I eat it.
I even hide it sometimes. Thank God I have a child who finds things, and then he says, "Oh, what's that?" I go, "Please take it and hide it somewhere else."
So we're going to have a quick break because it's time for
the adhan. All right.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. MashaAllah, alhamdulillah. So one last little tip you wanted to add, Angela?
Well, one or two.
Okay.
First, to reduce your sugar, start small. Don't look at the big picture. Don't get overwhelmed. If you are taking 3 teaspoons of sugar or 5 in your cup, reduce by 1 teaspoon. You might not even realize it, or half if you're serious. The other thing is read the packages, especially food directed to the kids. If you can avoid buying packaged food, that would be great, but it takes time. It's our habits that, we get used to doing certain things in a certain way. So try to find recipes to make the same thing differently, get ideas, read ingredients, and do it slowly. It's taken a long time to get where you are, so it's going to take time to get back to better habits.
Yeah, you've got to be pragmatic as well. We lead, all of us, quite frantic lifestyles, and we've got children and so many demands, and so whatever you can change that's easy and little but significant eventually, that's the kind of thing you're more likely to sustain, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
As a change. That's very good. Well, thank you very much. That's whenever we talk about it, Angela, I'm just spurred on again to motivate.
Me
to just clean up my act, because you do.
I do the same thing.
Let things go a little bit.
We do.
But we shouldn't beat ourselves too much with our guilt and how horrible we are. No, we're just
it's not our fault that the sugar is so important. Like, we grew up with it. We build habits around it. It's out there. They have commercials that make it fun. You want to have fun. You want to give fun to your kids. I mean, everywhere you go, in every culture, sugar has become a big deal.
Yeah.
So no wonder so many people are ill. But now, tell us a little bit about the role of sugar for athletes.
Well, to be honest, there's always, again, in general life, athletes, sports people, anyone who does sports in any meaningful way will think, I need a lot of carbs and I need sugar for my energy. But again, we can go back to the idea that if you've reached a point where you're fat adapted, i.e., you've managed to train your body to over several months. It takes several months, doesn't it, Angela?
Yeah,
you explained that for your body to use more the fat stores rather than just a quick sugar that you eat on a daily basis. Then if once you've managed to do that after several months, then your body makes the energy it needs directly for that goes from your liver into your bloodstream for whatever exercise you need to do. And to be fair, most of us, we have enough stores in our body. We don't need to add extra to sustain if we want to go 3 times a week to the gym or do some spinning class or whatever. So you can very easily reduce your sugar intake, your carb intake, and not see a difference at all in your performance on your bike, on your spinning bike in the local gym. There's obviously, if you are going further, if you're someone who's preparing for a marathon, then you have to follow quite a clear sort of diet to prepare yourself. But again, it does not necessarily have to have a lot of carbs. And when you really are going to need extra sugar, say, it's really if you go on the day of your marathon, because you're going to be able to your body's going to use whatever fat energy as fat as energy for a couple of hours easily. Then it's going to start to be seriously depleted, and you'll hit a moment where it'll struggle to give you that energy needed. So then it would make sense to have something that you can quickly ingest, and that would give you that little bit of extra energy to finish your race. For instance, you have the ultra runners. I mean, these are absolutely amazing people. They run for like
when you were
60 hours.
The Olympics. Did you see how they were running? On their way to wherever they're running, I see them being given little packets of something.
So those people, for instance, that when they do their training months, there could be potentially, there are a lot of them who are now low carbs, high fat, and they're fat adapted, etc. But on the day of the race and the day before the race, they would just increase. They would have like sweet potatoes. They would have things that just give them a little bit longer sort of carbs so that when they need to push themselves. And there's a process with cortisol as well, with the that pushes you to on the day of race because of nerves. That's what causes the nerves and pushes you to do more than you would do on a normal training, calm, relaxed day. And so basically there is a place for a little bit extra carbs in certain circumstances. But most people, again, a nutritionist for athletes, they say, if you're already, say, a little bit, not necessarily overweight, but you're not like super skinny, and you're not like someone who runs for 25 miles per day just as a warm-up, right? Which is really ultimately come true. Yeah, I mean, ultimately these are really exceptional athletes, and they're not your run-of-the-mill person like you and I and most people who are listening to us. You don't really need to worry too much, because you will always have enough energy. So I have personally sort of tried a few different ways of eating, and I think I have found my sort of middle ground now, where I still have carbs. I try to have carbs that are like not necessarily just simple carbs that are quickly digested,
like
give
sweet
me the
potatoes,
spikes.
for
But I would have or I would have oats that are a bit slower release. I would have apparently basmati rice is a little bit better than just plain long grain rice. So, and I would have smaller quantities, say, and I would compensate with more, healthier fats, etc. So I don't get this spike in insulin. I would fast as well, like delay my breakfast, not eat after training, apart from a bit of protein, just to help my muscles. So, it's just tweaking things here and there, and I find that now I have a level of energy that's fairly stable during the day. And maybe the day when, say, I have a competition, then that's when I would maybe have something a little extra, like a banana or something, potentially. But there's some interesting things. I mean, some of our listeners might be swimming, and there's something I've discovered doing my little bit of research, is that for swimmers, it's actually not recommended to have sugar too close to a swim, because the sugar slows the food's travel time through the gastrointestinal tract. So you have to time your meal around your swimming session, and if you obviously do a little bit of a competition, but you're as a swimmer, so if you have a breakfast that's loaded with sugar, your body will not have digested it properly before you've gotten to the pool. So it can cause then cramps, fatigue, and nausea, and other things that sabotage your swimming
This week you've just been made a Taekwondo teacher, so congratulations on that.
Thank you very much.
Is that what you will be telling your students? What will you be advising them, or are you gonna talk to them at all about nutrition.
No, yes, we do. When we prepare for competitions, we do. In Taekwondo martial arts, it's one of those sports that's only you really need a lot of energy. It's explosive. You only need a lot of energy for a few minutes. Training is the same. It goes up and down. You don't like just intensively work out for an hour. That's not sustainable. So, but for competitions, yeah, it's only just a couple.
So when
of
you're
minutes.
doing like a training class, what you tell your students before class? Would you tell them, if you want to be the best in your class, what would you eat?
Yes, I would. I would eventually have to advise them, but I think I would just give them the general advice we had today, and I would tell them, have sort of a meal not too close to training. Obviously, not sugar loaded, because by the time you reach training, you'll be hypoglycemic. So you lose your. It's a bit counterproductive. You have something that sustains you more, and then maybe have some yogurt. There's one thing that we have to realize: we don't need a huge amount of food. That thing about it just came to my mind. When you're pregnant, everybody tells you, "Oh, you need to eat for two."
That was such bad advice.
What it is? It's just a few extra 100 calories, which is what, a slice of bread, a couple of slices of bread extra a day.
They say no, you have to eat for two. That's the advice
Like
I remember
two
getting.
meals. Like they give you 2 plates.
Yeah. No,
You don't need that.
No.
So again, I would tell everyone, if you after training, have something with a bit of protein. So it could just be just a little bit of yogurt and peanut butter.
And that does it.
It doesn't mean a whole meal with lots of chicken and things. No, you have to realize that we actually don't need huge amount of food.
No, we don't.
To be sustained. There's another thing as well I've found out. Sugar interferes with the absorption of protein.
Now that's something I remember reading somewhere, but I totally have forgotten. So thank you for reminding. Yes, sugar. It does a lot of damage to your body. So it doesn't let you absorb protein. It interferes with magnesium. It interferes with your immunity. And we could go on and on and on and on.
Yeah. So generally speaking, as I mentioned the banana before, banana is a brilliant thing. If you need a little extra energy, it's pre-digested virtually. It's so easy. It goes into you, but it doesn't give you like those spikes, especially if it's like a greener banana rather than a very ripe one, very sweet one. Pears are really good. They're lower in GI, which is the glycemic index, which is the amount of you'll explain that better than me.
Well, I think we're running out of time today, but it basically how your blood gets affected from certain foods, and there's like they have them numbered. So basically, it gives you like it's less. Some are better
impacting.
than others. Yeah.
We'll explain that a bit more in another show. The idea of glycemic index
and glycemic load.
And also, don't forget, vegetables are carbs. So if you have carrots, if you have mushrooms, if you have broccoli, you can have all of these things.
Those are all good.
This will give you the energy. It doesn't have to be something that tastes sweet, and that's something we tend to forget.
Yeah.
So what we can just conclude on reminding the tip for the week, Angela. What kind of challenge could we give our listeners for this week?
The challenge for this week is try to reduce the sugar in your drinks. If you drink hot drinks, by say 1 teaspoon. Is it a lot? Some people, they know right away when the sugar is reduced.
Yeah, so basically try to have markedly less sugar, but still enjoy what you're drinking.
And the other thing that you guys can do this week is and do some research on alternatives to sugar like stevia and erythritol, and there's monk's fruit and a few other things. Do some research and let us know how it works for you.
So another hour that went super fast with so much we've got to say. So inshallah, we are looking forward to
everyone have a great week.
Seeing you again next week, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.